Watch your next family gathering. Someone will dominate the conversation, giving opinions about everything, citing news they read. Everyone will think this person is informed, but notice that quiet aunt in the corner. She just listens, observes, and when she speaks, everyone stops to listen. At the end of lunch, who gets what they want? Who convinces the others? It's always the silent observer. This isn't coincidence. It's power in action. Machiavelli spent years studying why some people get everything easily, while others, even being more intelligent, live frustrated. His discovery was revolutionary. Every human interaction has an invisible map of power. This map doesn't appear in etiquette books. It's not taught in school. But whoever learns to read it has an absurd advantage over everyone else. Think about your company. Officially, your boss has the power. But in practice, who really influences his decisions? It could be the secretary who organizes the schedule. It could be the veteran who knows everyone. It could be that person who's always consulted before important meetings. Most people only see the official hierarchy. They talk to the boss thinking they're talking to whoever decides. Result, they waste time, energy, and opportunities. But whoever sees the real map knows exactly who to talk to, when to talk, and how to talk. They don't waste energy knocking on the wrong door. They go straight to the source of true power. Machiavelli called this the necessity of knowing the nature of principalities. Translation: you need to understand how power really works, not how it appears to work. The first step is simple. Stop looking at positions and titles. Start observing real influence. Who do people seek when they need something important? Who gets changes without fanfare? Who has access to the ear of whoever's in charge? This person might not even have an important position, but they understood something others didn't. Power isn't position, it's influence. And influence you conquer by reading the invisible game. But identifying who has power is just the beginning. The next level is even deeper, discovering what each person really wants, even when they lie about it. The person who says, "I don't care about money," is exactly who thinks about it most. The one who repeats, "I don't like drama," is who creates the most confusion. And the guy who always says, "I'm direct," is the most manipulative of all. Schopenhauer realized this before any modern psychologist. People lie, but not just to others. They lie mainly to themselves. And whoever learns to see through these lies gains devastating power over any situation. You've noticed how some salespeople can convince you of anything. It's not because they're more persuasive. It's because they discovered what you really want, even when you don't admit it. Machiavelli applied this in politics. He knew that a nobleman who spoke about honor was actually worried about his reputation. A merchant who lectured about common good wanted to protect his business. A religious person who preached humility sought power over consciences. This is the first law of human nature. Everyone has a hidden agenda, always. The difference between you and people who manipulate you is simple. They know what your hidden agenda is. You don't know what theirs is. Think about that colleague who always offers to help on important projects. Everyone thinks he's helpful, but notice, he only helps when he can appear in front of the bosses. When it's to solve invisible problems, he disappears. His real motivation isn't helping, it's self-promotion. But he disguises this so well that he doesn't even realize he does it. Schopenhauer discovered there are 3 layers in the human mind. The first is what the person says they want. The second is what they admit to themselves. The third is what they really need. Most people operate on the first layer. They believe what others say. Result? They're manipulated all the time. But whoever learns to dive into the third layer has a complete map of human desires. They know exactly what to offer, when to offer it, and how to present it. The secret isn't being cynical. It's being realistic. People have deep needs: security, recognition, control, belonging. When you identify which need is driving someone at that moment, you hold the keys to that person's behavior. The next step is even more powerful, using your own invisibility as a weapon. While everyone fights to appear, you'll learn why silence is the most lethal tool of all. Test this today. In your next important conversation, speak 50% less than you normally would. Just observe what happens. The person will start filling the silences. They'll reveal information they didn't intend to share. They'll justify themselves even without you asking for explanations. And at the end, they'll leave that conversation thinking you're the smartest person they know. Sun Tzu discovered this 2,000 years ago. He who knows the enemy and knows himself will not fear the result of 100 battles, But how do you know someone? By letting that person talk. In 1999, an FBI negotiator named Christopher Voss was in a desperate situation. Armed kidnapper, hostage at risk, time running out. All traditional protocols had failed. Then Voss did something radical. He stopped trying to convince and just started listening. Result? In 2 hours, the kidnapper surrendered voluntarily. Voss realized something philosophers already knew. People don't want to be convinced. They want to be understood. And when you offer that understanding through attentive silence, they literally open up. But attention, it's not just any silence. It's strategic silence. Common silence is discomfort, embarrassment, emptiness. Strategic silence is controlled pressure. It's you creating a space where the other person feels the need to reveal themselves. The technique is simple. When someone finishes speaking, wait 3 seconds before responding. Count mentally 1, 2, 3. In this micro-interval, something fascinating happens in the person's brain. They interpret your silence as an invitation to continue. And they will continue. They'll elaborate, justify, exemplify. They'll deliver precious information you could never extract directly. Machiavelli applied this masterfully. He let others speak first in diplomatic meetings. While they revealed their positions, priorities, and weaknesses, he collected strategic data he would use later. He who speaks first shows his cards, he said. He who listens discovers the entire game. But silence serves more than collecting information. It also creates an aura of mystery and intelligence around you. Chatty people seem anxious, desperate for validation. People who control silence seem confident, mysterious, superior. Try this. In the next heated discussion, be the only person who doesn't raise their voice. Just observe, absorb, and when everyone finishes yelling, ask a simple, direct question. You'll see how this completely disarms the situation. But mastering the present is just the beginning. True power comes when you learn to anticipate the future with almost supernatural precision. Imagine a chess player facing an amateur. The amateur thinks about the next move. The master already sees the end of the game 10 moves ahead. The difference isn't talent, it's pattern recognition. Here's the fascinating paradox. People are infinitely complex and completely predictable at the same time. Complex because each has their particularities, stories, traumas. Predictable because they all obey the same basic patterns of human nature. Machiavelli realized this studying history. Different empires, different eras, different cultures, but the same dramas repeating: betrayal for ambition, alliance for necessity, war for scarce resources. Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands, he observed. Translation: people always choose appearance over substance. Always. Nietzsche took this further. He discovered that each person carries psychological types that determine their reactions. The resentful will always sabotage whoever's above them. The vain will always choose what makes them look good. The insecure will always attack first when feeling threatened. Once you identify someone's psychological type, you can predict their actions with surgical precision. Think about that boss who always blames the team when something goes wrong. Type: insecure with need to preserve image. Prediction: in the next crisis, we'll throw responsibility on others. Strategy: prepare evidence that protects you before the crisis even happens, or that friend who always has advice for your love life. Type: jealous disguised as helpful. Prediction: will subtly sabotage your relationships. Strategy: share less personal information with her. The secret isn't cynicism, it's applied realism. You're not judging people, you're recognizing patterns. Machiavelli had a specific technique for this. He called it study of occasions. He observed how each person reacted in moments of pressure, prosperity, and change. These 3 situations reveal anyone's true character. Pressure reveals if the person is brave or cowardly. Prosperity reveals if they're generous or stingy. Change reveals if they're flexible or rigid. With this data, he could anticipate exactly how each diplomat would behave in different scenarios. Result: he was always prepared for any move from others. Here's the practical exercise. Choose 3 important people in your life. For 1 week, observe how each reacts specifically in these 3 situations. Note mentally. Person 1, how do they act under pressure? How do they act when happy? How do they act when they need to adapt? Person 2, same 3 situations. Person 3, same 3 situations. At the end of the week, you'll have a behavioral map of each one, and in the next important situation, you'll be able to predict exactly how they'll react and prepare adequately. But anticipating individual behaviors is just one dimension. There's something even more powerful, instantly recognizing which human type you're facing in any first encounter. There's a secret code Jung discovered, analyzing thousands of patients. Every person you meet embodies one of 12 universal archetypes. And when you master this classification, you can instantly adapt your approach to get whatever you want from anyone. Let's use an example everyone knows: Breaking Bad. Walter White starts as the innocent, archetype that seeks security and order. He follows rules, respects authority, avoids conflicts. How do you deal with an innocent? By offering stability and protecting them from risks. But when Walter transforms into Heisenberg, he becomes the outlaw, archetype that breaks rules and challenges systems. How do you deal with an outlaw? Not by trying to control them directly, but by offering targets for their rebellion. Jesse Pinkman is the explorer, seeks freedom and new experiences. Mike is the protector, prioritizes loyalty and responsibility. Gus Fring is the ruler, obsessed with control and power. Jung realized these patterns repeat in all cultures and eras. They're not coincidence. They're deep structures of the human psyche. What's fascinating is that each archetype has specific triggers, specific fears and specific desires. When you identify someone's archetype in the first minutes of conversation, you can press exactly the right buttons. The creator loves intellectual challenges and recognition for originality. To win over a creator, ask for advice on complex problems and praise their innovative ideas. The caregiver needs to feel useful and necessary. To win over a caregiver, reveal controlled vulnerabilities and accept their help with genuine gratitude. The hero seeks to prove value through achievements. To win over a hero, create competitions where they can stand out and celebrate their victories publicly. Identification is simpler than it seems. Observe three things: how the person dresses expresses what image they want to project, what they like to talk about reveals their priorities, and how they react to compliments shows what they value in themselves. A ruler will wear clothes that demonstrate status, talk about achievements and responsibilities, and react better to compliments about their leadership. An explorer will dress practically, talk about experiences and adventures, and react better to compliments about their courage. In 5 minutes of conversation, you can classify anyone. And with this classification, you can completely adjust your interaction strategy. Which of these archetypes challenged you most today? Comment just one word, but one that comes from the soul. But identifying individual types is just the first level. The really advanced game happens when you learn to map the invisible alliances that control all social groups. Why does that mediocre person always get the best opportunities? Why was the most competent person on the team fired? Why do you work more than everyone but the same colleague always gets the credit? The answer is simple. You don't understand the game of invisible alliances. Machiavelli versus Sun Tzu had opposite views on this. Machiavelli believed alliances are always temporary, based on mutual interest that can change at any moment. Sun Tzu argued that well-built strategic alliances can last generations. Who was right? Both. It depends on context. In short-term competitive environments, like corporations in crisis, Machiavelli was right. People form alliances for convenience and betray them when better opportunities arise. In these scenarios, you should map immediate interests and position yourself as useful to the largest number of people possible. In long-term communities, like families, social circles, or stable companies, Sun Tzu made more sense. People value loyalty, reciprocity, and a history of trust. In these scenarios, you should invest in deep relationships with few strategic individuals. But regardless of context, there's a universal structure in all groups. There are always inner and outer circles. The inner circle has direct access to power, privileged information, and real influence over decisions. The outer circle works more, knows less, and receives the consequences of decisions they didn't participate in. The question that defines your life: are you in the inner or outer circle of the groups that matter? Most people don't even notice this division exists. They think that by doing good work, they'll automatically be included. Fatal naivety. Inclusion in the inner circle has nothing to do with competence. It has to do with three factors: access, trust, and utility. Access means being physically close to power when decisions are made. It's no use being brilliant if you're not in the room where things happen. Trust means being seen as someone who won't betray secrets or use information against leaders. Very ambitious or very ethical people are sometimes excluded because they're perceived as threats. Utility means offering something the inner circle needs but doesn't have. It could be technical knowledge, social connections, specific skills, or simply unconditional loyalty. Exercise for this week. Map the inner circle of your most important work or social environment. Take a paper, draw the leader in the center. Around them, place the people who have direct access to them. Mark who lunches together, who's consulted before decisions, who receives privileged information. Now identify, where are you on this map? In the inner or outer circle? If you're on the outside, choose one person from the inner circle who could become your access bridge. Don't try to win everyone over. Focus on one strategic contact who can include you in important conversations. Next week, do a specific favor for this person, something useful that demonstrates your value without seeming like flattery. But mastering social games is just one dimension of superior intelligence. There's an even deeper level, developing the mentality that permanently places you above the limitations that trap most people. Now you'll learn the final technique that integrates everything, the complete reading protocol. This is how you apply all this Machiavellian intelligence in any new situation. Whenever you enter an important situation, meeting, party, interview, date, follow these 5 mental steps in the first 10 minutes. Step 1. Map the power. Who really decides here? Ignore titles and positions. Observe who people look at when they speak, who interrupts without being interrupted, who others consult with their eyes before speaking. Step 2. Identify motivations. What does each important person really want? Not what they say they want, but what they demonstrate through behavior, emphasis, body language. Step 3. Use strategic silence. Speak 30% less than your natural impulse. Use silences to make others reveal themselves. Ask questions that require long explanations. Step 4. Classify archetypes. Each important person is what type? Ruler, caregiver, hero, explorer. Adapt your language and offers to each one's archetype. Step 5. Position strategically. Based on collected data, how should you present yourself? What value should you offer? Who should you align with? These 5 steps transform any social or professional situation into a complete strategic map. Practical example. You enter a new meeting. Apply the protocol. Discover that the official boss, step 1, actually always confirms with the assistant before deciding anything. She's who has real power. You notice she's caregiver archetype, step 4, values being useful and necessary. Your strategy, step 5. Instead of impressing the boss with technical knowledge, you demonstrate to the assistant how your project will make her job easier. Result, while others compete for the boss's attention, you win the support of whoever really influences decisions. The difference between you and 95% of people is that they enter new situations with closed eyes, reacting by impulse. You enter with a systematic protocol, collecting data and acting strategically. This isn't manipulation. It's applied intelligence, what I just said. Do you think it's strength or cowardice? Justify in the comments. From today, you have a clear choice. Continue being another intelligent person who complains about the world, or become someone who understands how the world really works. Your first practical task: choose one important situation in your life, work, relationship, family, and apply the complete reading protocol this week. 5 simple steps, immense results. Superior intelligence isn't about knowing more, it's about seeing more, and whoever sees more controls more. Now you've seen a bit of what makes this philosophy so impactful. Click the video on screen. You'll discover 9 specific tricks to be respected without saying a word. Techniques Machiavelli used to dominate any situation. Click now on the video on screen